Hey everyone, I'm Austin. I'm once again joined by Grayson Fulbright for another episode of SDRescue. Grayson, why should the people listen today?
Well, today, Austin, I think we're going to be talking about something that we haven't touched on in a lot of detail in past episodes, which is less about what you put in the email and more so about how you structure and organize what you're saying. So, we're talking about flow, we're talking about how you actually structure and present arguments, and how you actually command the conversation when you're trying to send an email and start one. So that's my pitch for today. For those of you who are joining us already, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to hit the like button, and if you have an email that you want us to review, comment below, hit us up on LinkedIn, join the Slack group, and hit up Austin or myself, and let's get in touch.
Awesome. So with that, you also do something really awesome that I think in this email I want to point out a little bit later. But the difference between talking about value or pitching value and actually delivering value. So you do a really good job in this as I read it. So let's jump right into the email. All right. Scroll up here. So it says, "Hi Austin, buyer intent data lets your team focus on active B2B buyers instead of spray and pray with LinkedIn or ZoomInfo's digital phone book. Our data is contact level with dates of activity by keyword and location, best in class. Our customers often see a 40 to 50% spike in their conversion rates when they precision sell with our detailed intent as a service. If we showed you 20 to 30 of your ideal prospects who are actively in a buying window for your solution, is that something you'd be interested in? If so, let's have a quick up or out to see if this would help you. Please grab a time through the Calendly link below or ping me back, whichever works best for you." Okay. So initially, just for me, when I read this, for me, there's a lot of so I think this email does something really, really good, right? Like I think there's a really compelling hook. 20 to 30 ideal prospects in a buying window. Am I interested? I'm a sales and marketing leader. Yes, cool. 20 to 30 different of my ideal buyers, people that fit my ICP. Yes, very interested. 40 to 50% spike in conversion rates. Am I interested? Yes, we all want 40 to 50% increase in our conversion rates. So I think it has a good hook, right? Like this is something of substance. As you were alluding to, I just think that there's a little bit of structure, a little bit more of the writing aspect to it that this really helps highlight. And I think this is something that, Grayson, you'll be able to add a lot of insight in because you're very, very good at copywriting.
Yeah, and I think to kind of get at your point and phrase it in my own words, I think I would be willing to use this email as is, just reordered in terms of when you say different things. And I think in terms of my feedback, that is my biggest point of feedback is I think the email itself, every sentence is pretty well constructed and has a purpose there and can make an impact. But the ordering in which they kind of presented their story, the ordering in which they tried to kind of present the conversation to the buyer, I thought it was a little bit odd. So if we kind of go through it here in the screen share, right, it's like they start well off with a story that's talking about the topic they want to get their prospects to think about, buyer intent data. So, okay, they start off with a good story. They highlight some good future state to think about. They mention a pain. They're framing the conversation well. But then I just feel like they do that and get it primed, and then immediately, like not even on a different line, like in the same little block of paragraph there, they directly go into a pitch and also start kind of like almost touting themselves, like why do you need to say you're best in class? If you're really best in class, that should be just known through research. And I feel like it was just this disconnect where they shared a good story, but then they got too quick into the pitch so that by the time they got to the value at the end that they offered, which is legitimate, that's a valuable thing that I think their buyer would want to hear more about. And so that got lost a little in translation because, I mean, if you're going to tell a story, the most direct route would say, hey, story about why this is relevant. I have 20 to 30 of your ideal prospects that I can share with you. Would you be interested? There's no need to talk about yourself if you have a good story and you already have value to give. So if I could reorder this, I would probably start with the if statement, because that's the most powerful in my mind, saying, hey, if we showed you 20 or 30 of your ideal prospects, like, is that something you'd be interested in? Then it matters much less the ordering of everything else, because that is the point of the conversation. If someone opens the email because they saw, if we showed you X ideal prospects, like, that is the type of person that you want reading your email. So overall, really well written. I would just have reordered it so that the focus of the email catches attention first. So, like, get the value out there, let them know that there's a reason to read this, and like something they're going to get out of it. It's not a waste of time. It's not buyer's regret. They're going to see the email and be like, ooh, that's valuable for me. I'll read it and see what's up.
Yeah, and I think for me too, if I saw that a rep on my team, like, so there's emails we look at where I'm like, dude, if a rep on my team sent this, we would have to have like an intervention, right? Like, we have to pull them aside and be like, hey, I want you to know, I just want to see if you're doing okay. Because but if I saw a rep on my team sent this email, I'm not gonna, there's obviously some coaching that needs to happen, but it's not bad. Like, it doesn't offend me. But like you said, so I really do think that I can understand where they're going, where they say, hey, here's the story, and then they immediately try and contrast it, because the problem is that they rush the story. They're like, hey, here's this cool story and nice setup. And the problem is that they rush to the end. By the way, we're better. We answered the question. It's a very typical salesperson SDR thing to do, right? Where we get excited. We're like a dog, right? When the owner's at the door, we just sit there and we wag our tails. And you are right. They do jump the gun a little bit. And I don't know why they say best in class either. I will say this, they get points for me with style, because anyone that uses anyone that uses an ellipses in the right location for like a strategic pause, I tip my hat to you. But is it good form? Is it good copywriting? Probably not, but I still am like, oh yeah, good job. I paused there. That's why I read it with the pause. The other thing for me is like when I read, so I see that, in that second line, you put a ton of orange in there, a ton of brand, seller information, when they're talking about themselves. I think that, they took a customer story and made it about them, right? It says our customers often see a 40 to 50% spike in their conversion rates, but it's because they can precision sell with our detailed intent as a service. Like, they're using their own marketing buzzwords, which if you're trying to create a category, I know is important to do, because they're trying to carve out and differentiate. But I see this a lot. This is a little bit more marketing, but I see that. But here's what happens: is marketing comes up with really cool words and really cool positioning, and it's really at the strategic level, right? And they're like, oh, we all need to be on the same message and the same wording, and they get it gets pushed down into the sales team, right? I see this actually with my team right now, is we've had, some change in our market, and we've changed our message. But the problem is that the way you pitch an investor, or the way you would pitch, a concept strategically, is very different, and how you would need to translate that for somebody to schedule a meeting with you. Right? It's the same concept of like elevator pitches, like, oh, how would you describe the company in 15 seconds? And, and reps spit that out. But here's the thing is, buyers don't want what your company does in 15 seconds. They want what your company can do for them, even if it takes 15 minutes. Right? So that's a big change, I think.
Yeah, I think you make a good point kind of going into terminology. Because one thing to note in this email is you can tell the beginning of their email, which this is kind of signature for a lot of sales emails out there. The beginning of their email definitely came with the most research and I think the most preparation on their audience. And the indicator of that, right, is spray and pray. Like they know that is a terminology, kind of a lingo that a sales leader would understand immediately. But then, like, as you go through the email, you're right. It starts to get into more kind of like marketing-y lingo that kind of diverges away from how real sales leaders talk and more so about how the brand's marketing team, I guess, assumes that buyers would talk. So like precision sell, like, I mean, I've heard of precision selling. I've never heard precision sell as a verb. So it's like, if I read that, me personally, this might not be every recipient, but I'd read that and be like, are they using that correctly? And even if they are, it's like that's questioning their credibility. You don't want them doing that. Instead, you want to use familiar terminology, familiar keywords and phrases that don't make people confused. It should be very clear what you're talking about. Another thing is like the intent as a service, right? I feel like that is a little bit too much. You're overcomplicating what you're selling. We'll go into it a little bit how I position it in my rewrite, but there are better ways to describe what your product does, how it helps buyers, and what maybe outcomes it brings without all the adjectives, without all the fluff. You can make a big impact just by making a short, concise statement. And so I think that would be my kind of final bit of advice on the topic of terminology is like, look at how they did it at the beginning. Buyer intent data, active B2B buyers, spray and pray, LinkedIn and Zoom info,
Yep.
all of these really personalized type of words that only audiences that are like sales and marketing leaders would get. But then it starts to fall off. And so I'd like, for anyone watching, like I would challenge you to review the emails that you send to make sure that the types of keywords, the types of phrases, the types of terminologies you use are consistent throughout the email. Because you want your buyers to feel like you are in their club and that you're just one of the club members, like saying, hey, what's up? I want to talk to you. You don't want them to feel like you're an alien or a new sales rep that doesn't know what they're doing, which is kind of the more common response.
I think another one's up or out in the CTA. I mean, I get it. I get what it is. Like, I've never ever heard up or out as like, hey, just if you want to see if you want to be in or out, like if someone said, hey, let's have a quick in or out meeting just to see if this would help. I understand what it is. Like, hey, let's see if you're interested. You want to move further in sales process, or if the 20 to 30 people we brought you have no relevance. That's cool. That's good. But I don't know what an up or out is. That might be an internal lingo or they're trying to sound cool. I don't know. But up or out is a phrase I've never heard before until this email. So I'm good on this. I mean, the CTA is pretty vanilla, like, right? It says, please grab a time through Calendly or just message me back, whichever works best for you. I do like that. Hey, if you have a Calendly link, some people do find it obnoxious if you're like, hey, here's my link. So I do like that they did like preface it with, hey, you can use my Calendly or message me back, whichever works better for you. I do that personally myself. So that's my approach. Maybe I'm a little biased about the CTA. Like, I'm not saying the CTA is good or anything, but I do like that they padded that, because sometimes I just think it's obnoxious when someone just says, if you'd like to have a meeting about this, here's my link. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm neutral about it. I think if you are going to use a statement like that, don't use like request verbs or like command verbs, like please grab a time, because then even if you do really, really great all throughout the email and really capture their attention, for some personalities, a phrase like "please grab a time" is just
It's gonna be really offensive.
It's gonna insinuate that you've already bought their time and that they have no say in it. So I'd say, like, if you're gonna do something like, "Hey, like here's my calendar link," I would try to phrase it in a way that makes it conversational. So, you could say, like, at the end of this, if so, I'd love to have a quick up or out to see if this would help you. Here's a calendar link that you can use to find a good time if that sounds like a good thing for you, something like that. So it's always giving them the option to out. There's a big power of giving people the clear option that they can say no, because you hear this a lot in sales, but you don't want to make prospects feel like you're backing them into a corner and like it's like having to like mentally wrestle with you to like get you to go away. You don't want the experience to be like that.
All good points. Do you have anything else to say on this one? I'm ready to move on to the rewrite if you are.
Nah, I like it. Let's go.
Cool. All right, so I'll go ahead and read it. I was scrolling down to look for where the rest of the email was. Hi, Austin. I found 20 to 30 ideal in-market prospects for new arcs. We'll just use new arcs. And wanted to share with your sales team. Sudden events and hidden changes during a sale can instantly increase the value and winnability of the deal. So we leverage this real-time intent data to help keep salespeople focused and increase win rates. I'm hoping to review these prospects together via email or call to see if any would be a good fit. Would it make sense to connect? All right. So this right, you said, so this is when people, if you're new as an SDR, or if you're experienced and you're inexperienced as a copywriter, that should basically just be about, if you're, whether you're new in tenure or new in copywriting, that should cover almost everybody. This is the difference when, people and sales managers, us in sales management have a really difficult time expressing this, right? The difference between talking about value and actually and actually communicating value, right? The green sentences in this email are what make it different from the above ones, right? Both have 20 to 30 leads as the hook. Both of them ask for some kind of meeting or call in a way, right? Different ways. But I'm saying fundamentally, the same ask is there. Grayson didn't really change the objective, the end goal of the email. But if you notice, it's much more concise, but it's much more valuable. So maybe you can break us down and walk us through how you got to this point.
Yeah, I think I want to start by just kind of skipping straight to the second line and say that this rewrite is an example of how I would recommend you talk about yourself in a story. Don't tell a story, talk about pains and talk about a future state, and then have a period, and then just start a new disconnected sentence to start talking about yourself. Like, if you're going to tell a story, if you're going to try to share something that's compelling and it's going to get them to say like, wow, thank you for actually including those words in the email, you want to tie it into the story. You want to tie your value prop into the story. For example, if I would have taken this exact line and said, sudden events and hidden changes during a sale can instantly increase the value and winnability of the deal, period. We leverage this real-time intent data to help, doing that. It's a weird flow because to readers, it's two separate ideas that aren't well connected, especially if you just go straight into it. And so here I tried to directly correlate the story I'm sharing with the value prop of what my company does. And I tried to keep it as little as possible about us and as much as possible about my story and about the outcomes that we bring to people who have experienced these stories.
So here's the thing. And yeah, this is really good because I think this really illustrates, I'm going to scroll up for a second and scroll up to the other email. Because look, they tell the story, talk about themselves, talk about their customers, talk about themselves, and then they say, hey, do you want 20 to 30 leads? Here's the difference in what you did. You said, hey, I have 20 to 30 ideal in-market prospects for you. And you don't say, here's how I know they're in-market prospects. You show how you know, right? You tell them through a narrative. Hey, things that change, things that are hidden during a sale can drastically shift whether whether you're going to win or lose a deal. And so we have real-time intent data that keeps salespeople focused on deals that are going to close instead of calling on leads randomly because you have their name and phone number from ZoomInfo or LinkedIn. Right? How many calls, right? How many sales leads are out there going, man, we're making calls, but the people don't convert, right? We know that's a problem. Right? If you're a salesperson, if you're an SDR right now, that's a problem. If you could have curated to you as an SDR, just think about that. People that have intention data, stuff that they're deciding on doing to buy or sell, it could be really valuable. So all I'm saying is I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. The showing, not telling is important. But you're doing it in writing, so knowing how to properly show something through a narrative. Right? So you told a story about the 20 to 30 leads. That instantly, to me, makes them more valuable.
Yeah. And to kind of wrap around what you just said to my earlier point on the kind of the organization of the email, I essentially kept the structure the same in terms of what was in it. I just reordered kind of how I approached the email. And my philosophy was, well, if I can get 20 to 30 leads for them to review, and with my knowledge of that market, I know that would be something really valuable that would be worthwhile to look at. Why wouldn't I present that right out of the gate? You don't need to know who I am. You don't need to know who my brand is. I mean, whether it came from a software or I'm a passionate evangelist that spent 10 hours doing research to build a list for you, it really wouldn't matter to a sales leader. If someone reaches out and says, hey, I have some potentially in-market prospects for your sales team to check out, that is eye-catching. And it's a pattern interrupt, because people who are reaching out to sell to sales leaders, they usually sell. So it's very easy to pick up and filter out. You're like, oh, hello, my name is Grayson and I'm from this company. Or hello, I noticed that you blank. Or hello, we do X, Y, Z.
I saw your profile on LinkedIn.
Yes. Like I feel like out of every type of buyer, like sales and marketing leaders are some of the most well-tuned and well-trained to bullshit in sales. And so my philosophy was like, dude, like, don't even come off as a seller. You're selling to a salesperson. Focus on the value, focus on something that they would want and something that they can think about, even if they don't open the email. It really doesn't matter where it's coming from. And to kind of wrap up this point, I didn't just show the value that I could deliver. I made my intentions clear at the end of the email before my CTA, not by saying, hey, I'm hoping to review these prospects together to see if you would be a good fit as a customer for me. No. That's bringing me into the conversation. That's bringing my brand into the conversation. That's bringing the idea of a purchase into the conversation. All things that are uncomfortable for the prospect. Instead, I laser focused on them. I am their advocate. I said, hey, I want to review these not so I can have a conversation with you. I want to review these to get your thoughts on if they're good fits, because that's valuable to you and I gain knowledge. So positioning the value that you give to someone is very important. You don't want to make prospects feel like there's a massive thick string attached to the thing you're offering. You want it to be a very natural flowing thing that gets people excited to go through that journey with you.
Yeah, I think your CTA change is money, right? Like just going, hey, you keep it focused on the hook, right? It's not about getting 15 people. Guys, the 15 minutes on my calendar is so overdone. And the thing is that it makes it feel like I have to donate time to your piggy bank. Dude, you don't want your prospects feeling like they're doing you a favor. You should be doing, right? They need to jump on that meeting because you're doing them a favor, right? You want to give them a reason to meet with you. Like, hey, I'm meeting with Grayson. He's about to tell me 5 deals or 10 deals that we could potentially pursue at the end of this meeting. Or whatever it is, right? Like you could even do, this email is so here, I'll do this. This email is so well structured. You can completely make it the inverse thing, right? Hi, Austin. I found 2 to 5 people, or how about this instead of this? Hi, Austin. It's not I found, because sorry, I'm going to flip this around. Hi, Austin. Do you want to know why you lost the last 5 deals that you lost? The last 5 competitive deals you lost? Right? You can go, sudden events and hidden changes during a sale can instantly decrease or increase the chance you'll lose a deal, right? And you can just go through it that way. And you can still go through, hey, when can we hop on a call and I'll show you where you could have known that you were going to lose those deals before you went down in enterprise sales, at least. So that's my background, right? If you're going to pursue something for 12 to 18 months, 24 months, you'd like to know month 2 or 3 to stop pursuing, right? It's expensive and you can bankrupt a company chasing big deals for too long. So that has value in the right context. But I'm saying that this email, you can structure and plug and play this, right? It's knowing what to write in the green, being able to tell the right story. And I'm not trying to make this, making sure you know the right words to put in the green and having the right hook are all important things. You don't have to be giving away leads. It could be something else of value that's relevant to your prospects and to what your company can deliver. Not every company is going to deliver leads, right? Like my company ain't delivering leads. I'm not helping more people buy Wendy's burgers or Popeye's chicken, but there are things of value for those prospects. So it's just that you can plug and play. You can just tell an email is well structured and well written, because I could plug and play just about any concept into this email and it would make sense and be compelling. That's how you know you've got it.
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said of the ordering of emails too. And I mentioned this in a post that I made on LinkedIn about today's episode, that there really is no one answer. on how to best organize or structure sentences for an email, simply because every market is different, every sales org is different, every buyer is different. But you can reverse engineer how your emails are organized to get an understanding for why you're getting certain results. So for instance, the original email we looked at, the offer, the value was near the end of the email.
Yes,
and so what that implicitly means is when you put more value and kind of like put all the solid chunk to get next steps moving at the end, you're going to get less opens because overall less people will be engaged because they're not seeing this value immediately. But the people who do open tend to convert a little better because they actually open it, they read through it, and they see the value and convert. You can do it other ways too, to where if you flip it, and you hear about clickbait, right? It's just a different strategy. You focus more on catching attention. You put the personalization in the subject line, you put the research in the very first line, and you focus more on getting the opens. And then a lot of times people who go that route, they have the opposite problem. They can get all the opens in the world, but then it's harder for them to actually get responses because they put all of their kind of like structure in the intro and then kind of forget about how to structure their actual value prop, building enough context to set the meeting. So I would say when it comes to email, just recognize that every word needs to have a very clear purpose for being there, and every sentence works together, whether you think so or not. People skim and recap things before they dive deep, and you need to be able to structure things to go through a specific journey. In this email rewrite we looked at, I was giving them value, explaining how we do it, and giving them a clear next step on how they can get some leads. That was it. I didn't go over value. I didn't go over customer testimonials, and I didn't elaborate on that story. And so I think that is something to kind of note, that when you are structuring, you got to understand what you're putting in. And then it's a little easier to say, okay, well, if this is a value prop, or if this is where I'm sharing a pain, maybe I can put it here or put it there, or maybe put it after a different sentence, and start testing to see which ordering works. The implicit lesson of this is I'm not really a big fan of templated emails. And so I would definitely say if you've been using very similar messaging with the same templates and the same structure, I would advocate for your org to start testing just the ordering. Say, hey, the messaging is already approved, but what if we organized it in this way to bring about this type of feeling in the prospects, rather than what we've been doing for 6 or 12 plus months.
Nice. That's a good point. That's a good experiment. I think experimenting is another thing that people don't do enough of. And if you have sales engagement tools like Outreach or SalesLoft or Zant, there's 3 of them. It's easy. They have built-in features that let you measure which emails convert and on which step. So hopefully you're utilizing that as a rep. I think that's important to do. Speaking of things that are important to do, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, and you join ST Revolution's Slack group. And again, like Grayson said at the beginning, we'd love to get your emails. We'd love to have you on the show. If you want to take a join. If you want to join us and go through your email together, or if you have if you think you have a great email that can't get any better, well, run it through the gambit. Let's see. Show us your email. Hit me with your best shot. My email address and direct dial are on my LinkedIn profile. Email me your best email. You might make it on the show.
Yeah, you might. We'd love to have you. So thank you everyone who's joined us today. If you have anything specific to sales emails that you'd like to learn about, if there's something you'd like us to focus on, maybe kind of like talking about a topic or trying to compare different approaches, let us know in the comments or hit us up in our Slack, because we're always looking at different ways to kind of use these emails to show examples of how to handle different situations, and especially how to handle different markets, because we do understand that as salespeople, we all have different environments that we're dealing with. And so not every lesson is going to be applicable to everyone. So make sure to drop your comments below if you do have anything specific that you're thinking about.
Awesome. Hey, appreciate it, everybody. I've got nothing. If you've got nothing, I think we go ahead and sign off this week. See you, everybody.
See everyone. See you next week.